The CattleFax Outlook session is one of the can't-miss events during the annual Cattle Industry Convention. That's where we find Cattlemen to Cattlemen reporter Russell Nemitz.
You know, during each year's Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA trade show, one of the more popular segments of the annual convention is the CattleFax Outlook seminar. And with us on the segment today is Randy Block with CattleFax. And it's always hard to boil your guys' 90-minute, 2-hour presentation down for this segment, but you're one of the experts. What did you tell these thousands and thousands of folks here in San Diego this morning?
Well, you know, Russell, we've obviously been in a very volatile time in here. These markets have gone through a period of transition. We've come off our cycle low in supply and are high in prices in here in the last 12 months. And we've got increasing supplies coming as we look down the road the next several years. But so much has happened globally. You know, with the slowdown in global demand and ended up pushing more of that product back on our domestic marketplace. I think the real underlying thing is the market went through the supply shock in 2015.
You told folks at previous conventions that this was going to happen, and it shouldn't be much of a surprise because it's playing out just as you guys expected it to.
Well, I think we saw all the right things that were happening. The thing, though, the market got softer quicker than we would have expected. We wouldn't have anticipated that we would have ended up with 10 more pounds of protein on a per person basis in our U.S. marketplace in 2015. That's a big change.
All right, let's talk about what really is on everybody's minds. What are these prices going to look like here in 2016? Let's start with the cow-calf guy out there and those calves.
Well, I think you're going to see some stability in here. Obviously, these prices have come off their highs, but we're anticipating a market that can average in the high 190s to $2, somewhere right in that area. You know, you'll see calves at their highest times of the year where they'll get up in here into the low twos, and in your fall run when they're typically at their lows, they'll be softer. But I just look at that on the calves, you know, averaging from 190 to $2. Feeder cattle averaging up in here 165 to 170. Again, we may see them get as high as 175 or 80 at their highs. And the fed cattle market, more of a 120 to mid 140s market is where we'll spend the lion's share of our time. I think the biggest thing for folks to remember, though, is when you get into this stage of the cycle, you tend to make a little lower highs and a little lower lows on an annual basis. So just keep that in mind as you're doing your planning.
You know, for the consumer who may be watching this segment, what can they expect, you think, at the meat case in terms of beef prices here this year?
Well, you're going to see retail beef prices continue to soften up, coming off these record high levels we had in 2015. So they'll soften up. They're going to see a lot more beef featuring. So in many markets around the country, for example, we saw 565 to 585 ribeyes for several weeks in here around the holidays. We very well could see a lot of those sub $6 features on middle meat items as we go deeper into 2016.
Last question for you. We talk about it a lot, but just remind folks just how big of a deal exports are, whether we have them or we're lacking them.
Well, it's a big deal. You know, exports in total add about $350 a head to the value of all of the animals that we have in our production system. So when we have slowdowns in exports like we experienced in 2015, just the change in hide and offal value itself and the loss in beef value of exports was $200 a head from the fall of 2014 to the fall of 2015. So that's a pretty big change. It's an eye-opener, and as our markets become more global, these export markets are even more important for us.
We certainly always appreciate you taking time right after your busy Outlook seminar here at the Cattle Industry Convention.
I'm glad to do it. Thank you. Good luck to all your producers out there.
All right. Thanks a lot again. Randy Block with CattleFax. Again, get more details by visiting their website. Easy to remember, cattlefax.com.